Danica, welcome to the Sky Sports F1 podcast.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Very well. I'm really looking forward to this chat because there's so much I want to get into. And we've got a lot of questions from people at home as well on Twitter and Instagram. So I'm going to try and get through as many of those as possible. I want to talk about your career, your thoughts on Formula One at the moment, and also the future of motorsport, how we can get more women into this brilliant sport as well. But I thought, actually, because we're in the comms box here in Hungary, this is quite an apt place to start, right? Because you've been with us at Sky for a couple of years now. How's it all going? How are you enjoying being on the other side of the mic?
It's good. I've been retired for a little over 5 years, and every year my broadcasting presence has grown just a little bit. It started with just doing the Indy 500, and then it went to a couple of NASCAR races, one F1 race, and now it's like a bunch of F1 races as well as the Indy 500 and a couple of NASCAR races. So I have myself a little 10-race series in the season now. So that feels like a really good retired amount right now.
I mean, when you were racing, did you ever anticipate that you might have a career afterwards in the media? Was that ever something on your mind?
No. Oh, no. And I'm not sure if full-time is something that I could do. Because it's like, if you're going to travel the whole schedule and do it all, just feels like you'd rather drive. So, I just enjoy doing so many other things. I have other companies, I have other interests, and, truth be told, I do a little bit of vacationing now, or a lot of it. So I really enjoy that. But what I never expected was, one, actually how hard it is to do the interviews, to conduct the interviews, and have unique questions, and even just you have to have a real grip on like so much of what's going on that it's a lot of information. And I was never really one to really get into all that anyway, but it's so part of the job. And so you have to know a lot of things, and you have to ask. I've never even thought it would be intimidating to interview a driver, but like when I do that, I'm like, oh geez, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
So I now have more empathy for those interviewing athletes or anyone in particular, anyone like, with a famous name or doing a big job, because, it's a stressful situation and you want to do a good job. And every now and again, I would not be maybe the most pleasant. So I'm sorry to those people out there that interviewed me, that I would, something like they'd ask me like, oh, are you excited to be back at Kansas Motor Speedway? And I remember one time.
You roll your eyes.
Oh, no, worse.
Oh, really?
I remember one time in particular I was said, is that the best question you can come up with?
I mean, as an interviewer, that strikes fear into the very core of me.
I'm so sorry. I do think that there are better questions than that, of course. I think that, that is a pretty generic one.
Yeah.
But I do understand the position the other person's in, and just how many people that interviewer has to know about. So, and then I just, the camaraderie on the other side is really fun. And it really, broadcasts really rely on having a good relationship with the other people that you're working with. And so that's really the biggest reason why I do so many Formula One races now, is because I really enjoy the crew.
Yeah. I'm going to make sure I try and ask some good questions here after that.
It's okay if you don't, because I won't do that to you.
That's very kind. I'm intrigued to know, what was your first break into broadcasting? So obviously you were a racing driver, but what was the first time you managed to get on screen, get behind a microphone?
I mean, I've been on television doing various different things for a really long time. I remember when I was 14, I was on MTV, like doing this, like extreme athletes doing things. And then there was a really big piece that was on ABC Sports, and it was called Passion to Play, Making of a Champion. And it was with myself, Anna Kournikova, and Tara Lipinski. And we were all 14. So television, like cameras around, has been something I've been very comfortable with for a really long time. But as far as hosting goes, it was cool. NASCAR did a really good job of utilizing their assets at the track. And so there was actually one race at Pocono where it was an all-driver broadcast for the series below us, what was then called the Nationwide Series. So all the drivers were the broadcast that day. So, and then there were some other ones where they would have me up there for those nationwide races as sort of a guest analyst. And I did a few of those and always felt really comfortable. So, play-by-play is not my thing. Like, Crofty, have at it. But as far as just like giving a different perspective, a driver's perspective, a little insight into the workings and the dynamics within teams and drivers, that's something I enjoy sharing.
Yeah. As now a broadcaster, do you miss racing? Do you obviously, because you're going to a lot of racetracks now in this new part of your career, when you come here, is there still a part of you that's kind of going, oh, I wish I was on track. I wish I was still doing that?
I would say that like that feeling of like the sensation of the car like creeps up maybe 1 or 2% every year. Like really? I've noticed like a little like, oh, like the sensation of it is so unique that it's been a while now. But I by no means wish I was out there.
And I guess as well, athletes, you know, once you retire as an athlete, it must be hard to match the adrenaline, the competition in everyday life. I mean, as not an elite athlete myself, I can't imagine much comes close to driving a car over 200 miles an hour and being in that intense competition. Yeah. Is that fair?
That's probably fair. Yeah. I mean, because there's a physical risk element and but mostly like an ego risk element. You know, my greatest fear for forever was just failing, you know, not being good. So I think that it is hard to match that, but it doesn't mean you can't kind of scratch the surface. Like, I have this theory that in general, we kind of find our peak moments, like we find our peak stress naturally with whatever we're doing based on how, you know, pushing ourselves, because we only push ourselves as hard as we're willing to stress ourselves out usually. And so I find that everybody kind of has the rhythm. It's where some people are nonchalant about everything, right? You meet people and they're like cool as a cucumber no matter what. And then you meet other people that get stressed out and anxious over the smallest things. And so everybody kind of has their set point for it. So yeah, I still get close with various different things that I do. And I'm not sure if it's because it's just as stressful or if it's just maybe it ends up having to do with just my natural set point or how much I care. Maybe I'm not really sure.
Yeah. I want to get into your career now, and I want you to take us back to where it all began. What's your earliest motorsport memory? What's the one thing you look back on in your childhood that you think that was when it all got started for motorsport?
Well, my earliest memory is probably not the same as when it all got started, but they probably go a little bit hand in hand. Yeah. I mean, I remember being at the dirt track with my sister, and my dad was working on a car, and my sister and I were in the grandstands just like buying like, you know, hot dogs and Freezy Pops and Snickers, I'm sure, and collecting like all the clay that the cars kick up off the corner. And so I remember that. But when it all changed, I don't think there was a time I went to the track and watched something that it changed, but I think that driving and winning was probably when it changed. That was where the dream to become a race car driver came. Like I was winning by halfway through my first year in go-karts, and I remember thinking that I would go to college for engineering so I could learn how to work on my race car.
Yeah. And you came over to England, didn't you?
Then I realized when I came to England that you did not need to know about cars. You just needed to go make a cup of tea.
We've actually got a question that links us perfectly into one of our first questions from Twitter, which is, what was your favourite thing about the UK when you came over here?
I didn't love my experience in England.
Yeah.
My favourite thing about England...
Tea?
People are really good at driving in England.
Yeah.
I did like that. Yeah, but then I'd say my favorite part about going to England was just that, you know, it helped me grow up. I learned a lot about life, not really a lot about cars, but I learned a lot about life.
Because how old were you at this
16.
point? 16. I mean, that is really young.
3 years, yeah.
To be leaving home and moving to the country.
So I learned a lot about life, and the experience was what really proved to Bobby Rahal that who was the one that ended up giving me a job driving back in the States after I came back when I was 19, because I was in England. Like, he was like, wow, you're really committed and you're willing to do what it takes. So it was also part of his decision. So that was the best part that came from it.
Can I ask you your least favorite part of being in England?
Least favorite part? I mean, if I'm being honest, I thought that I had a lot of friends, and then when I left, I realized that after I called them all like for 6 months. No one called me. I was like, maybe if I stop, let's see. And then I never spoke to anyone again.
Really?
So I feel like it's really sad to think that I spent 3 years and got to know people really well and they just weren't really my friends.
Yeah.
That was kind of like a sad part. And then the other part that was probably not so good is it's a real toss-up between the food and the weather. I mean, I'd have to say the weather probably got me the most.
Yeah.
Like, I remember one day I was going out for a run and I got my shoes on and opened up the door and it was sunny. That's why I was like, oh, it's time to go for a run. It's beautiful out.
Yeah.
Open up the door and I stood there and it was sunny and it just started raining on me.
Well,
and
it was still sunny.
Probably God saying, get the heck out of here. Because I just stood there and I was like, wow, it just rains no matter what, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So the weather.
Welcome to England. So you went back to the States and then talk us through that part of your career. How did it eventually lead to 2005 and getting that drive in IndyCar?
Well, my dad and I went to the track like lots of weekends in the year, just walking and talking to people, trying to see if they'd give me a ride and a test in the car. Not a ride, even just a test. And so many people said no, or threw out some crazy number expense-wise to do it. And then I remember I was just actually telling this story to a girlfriend just the other day. And I was saying how she was asking similar questions about my career and how I got how I did what I did and getting to IndyCar. And there was somebody who told me that I could have a full sponsorship if Bobby Rahal signed a letter of intent saying that he was going to run me in the feeder series called the Formula Atlantic Series. And so I was like, all right. And so it was a Milwaukee race for IndyCar. My dad was like, all right, let's go to the track. And I said, Dad, I'm just sick of it. Like, I'm sick of going to the track and walking around and having no one have any interest. And I'm like, I'm just over it. And the thing is, I almost always do the right thing. I'm not going to say always because I'm sure I don't always, but I usually do the right thing. And so I was like, all right, let's go. And so he's like, all right, we'll just go for an hour. And so we went. I saw Bobby and I said, hey, Bobby, I got a phone call that said, if you have signed a letter of intent that says that we're doing the Formula Atlantic Series, that we could have a full sponsor. And he said, all right. And I went, oh my God. And 2 weeks later at the next IndyCar race, we signed a letter of intent at a press conference at Laguna Seca. And that's it. And then I signed a contract that was 2 years with a third-year option. The third-year option was to go to IndyCar.
Yeah.
And it was in my second season. I had a good first season. Second season was even better. I qualified on the pole. I didn't win, but I think I finished third in the championship or something, ran up front a lot. And I was at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, so it was May, so it was still early in the season. And Bobby, it was the press conference, the media availability day, and Bob was up at the front, and he just randomly, while I was watching this with all the press too, he said that Danica will be racing Indy cars next year. And I was like, what? Like, oh my God. So that's how the transition happened.
And I mean, would that have happened if you hadn't have gone to the track right at the very start of that story when you were kind of so down and out about the whole thing?
Butterfly effect. You never know.
It's strange.
You never know. That's why
doors.
I just was sliding doors. You just never know what that one moment will be that changes everything. And that's the reality of for all of life is you are always one decision away from an entirely different life.
Yeah, fascinating. 2005, you raced in the Indy 500 for the first time. You became the first woman to lead laps and score a top 5 finish at the Indy 500. A brilliant achievement, but what did you make of it at the time? And reflecting on it now, do you see the significance of that achievement?
More, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I look back, and even when I retired and I was doing the broadcast for the first time, I remember watching the cars come down the front straightaway to start the race, and I was like, wow, they are crazy. I was crazy.
Fearless. And
240 miles an hour with just wheels nearly touching and having to thread the needle at that speed around a pretty flat track. So I remember thinking that, but in the moment in 2005, I was like, when I took the lead, I was asked like how that felt, and I said I felt like I was where I was supposed to be. The car was really fast all month. I almost qualified on the pole. I had a really big moment in turn 1 of my first lap because I promised myself I was not going to lift at any point during the qualifying run.
Yeah.
And you have to do 4 laps, and it was really cold that day. And so I went into turn 1, never lifted, and it went, and it stepped out real quick, and I had one quick lift, caught it, and then finished my 4 laps flat. And so I guess I did even better than keeping it flat. I caught it from crashing. But anyway, I qualified 4th, and then I ended up finishing 4th, but I was leading, and then I lost the lead, and then I passed again for the lead on a restart and was leading right up until the very end. And so it felt really comfortable. It felt really calm, actually. So, but I've always had such reverence and respect for the process. I really felt like I was so fortunate to be in a really good car and have it be really fast. And I also understood the speed and magnitude of the track and just the fact that we were going so fast, and to never take for granted that the thing is underneath you, and just to really be vigilant the whole time. So yeah, I have a different perspective now, but then it felt comfortable.
Yeah. I mean, with the Indy 500, presumably that's something you watched a lot as a child.
Yeah.
And how did it feel to be there as a participant, as a racer?
I mean, you're so in it.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to really be objective because you're so in it. You're in the experience. You're focusing on the job. But I think now with hindsight, I can really appreciate just the magnitude of it. Like, if there was to be a girl right now to go out there and nearly win her first year, I'd be like, holy wow, right? And that's what I did. And it's funny, actually, just as a quick little story, I was walking to pit lane yesterday, and I see this person like put his arms up. He's going to say hi to somebody. This person that he's going to hug and say hi to is Jacques Villeneuve. And I was like, oh. And I kind of had him, I was like, nah, keep going. Because, one, I tell the story because he was the only driver I really thought like, wow, that's amazing what he did, because I think he finished second his first year and he won his second year in IndyCar. He won in Formula One. I was like, that is amazing. That guy clearly is so good that he can just win in whatever he gets in. And so the fact that I almost won my first year was like, reminiscent of just this driver that was so good that he just jumps into it and nearly wins the race his first year. But then fast forward to when I ran the Nationwide series, the NASCAR feeder series, he would do the road course races. And so it was Road America in Wisconsin. And I was running 4th. It was coming down to the last lap, and he was 5th. And he just punted me, sent me at this, downhill 90-degree turn 4 or 5 or whatever it was at the end of a long straightaway. And I, go off in the dirt and come back on. Well, here I am in this scenario. My only guy that I ever looked up to now punted me. And all of the news after that was like, what a jerk. You want to go to this wall? Just totally supporting me. And I thought, I am so glad that happened, because only in that scenario could I look good next to the only person that I looked up to. I look like the better. I was ahead of him. He crashed me to get ahead of me. All of these things. And I'm like, I'm kind of grateful he did it, because it gave me this sort of really wide perspective on having this experience as a kid, looking up to him and then looking better than him. And it's hard to give yourself credit for the things that you've done. You more than anything think about what you didn't do.
Yeah.
And so it kind of helps to drive home that, my skill or talent or what I accomplished. And then, of course, the next time that we raced against each other in the Nationwide series was Montreal. And inevitably, whenever you have an incident with somebody on track, you always qualify next to them. So him and I were 3rd and 4th, second row. Yeah. And we had to ride around on the truck around the track together on a very quiet ride. So anyway, that's a long story, but, I felt very comfortable leading the race, and, also very grateful that I had a good car to be able to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Ryan on Twitter would like to know what the biggest highlight for you was during your IndyCar and NASCAR career.
I mean, that first Indy 500 was by far and above really the most...
Really, even above the win?
Formative experience. Yeah. I mean, I was the win in Japan, I was good there the first year. I qualified a fraction off the pole my first time there the year before, or a few years before. which led into the Indy 500 my first year that I did really well. And so it was just one weekend. But my first Indy 500, that was my fourth race as an IndyCar driver. I was super fast in rookie orientation. I was fastest on Fast Friday. I nearly qualified on the pole for the race. I nearly won the race. Many of the days that we practiced, there would be the fastest practice, whoever was top of the charts at the end of the day would go to a press conference. I had that many days, so I had my $10,000 checks from a bunch of those days. So I won a lot that month.
Yeah.
And it changed my whole life. People said, especially agents, that, I'm like, where are the sponsors and the endorsements? And they're like, when you win, then they'll all come. It didn't even change that. So my life didn't really change that much after I won. But after that first 500, my entire life changed.
Yeah, yeah.
And then qualifying on the pole for the Daytona 500, not because it was hard. It was not hard. It was all the crew. They just prepared the car and you just hold it wide open. Again, dismissing what it takes, but anyone who drives NASCAR will agree with me. It's very easy to qualify. But starting next to, again, the one driver I looked up to the most in NASCAR, Jeff Gordon.
Yeah.
So having that experience to be able to qualify on the pole next to him and have those photos is also cool.
Yeah. I wonder if we have a bit of that in F1 actually, because obviously there are drivers who would have grown up watching Lewis Hamilton, right?
Sure.
Some of our younger drivers.
Yeah.
And you then find yourself going into a corner with Lewis. Lando.
Fernando Alonso's going to be 42.
Yeah.
I think I saw some picture on Instagram. It was a sperm and Fernando Alonso when he was whatever Oscar, I think it was Oscar. And then it was him at this age with Fernando now. And it showed the delta of when he was born, this is what Fernando is doing, which is probably F1.
I never thought we'd talk about Fernando as a sperm in this podcast, but there we are.
You can envision it.
Yeah.
A fish.
Yeah.
Does that sound better?
Little fish. There we go. Perfect. But you do forget, don't you, that some of these drivers, these are heroes. These are racing heroes.
Totally.
And they're racing against them. I want to just get your thoughts on ovals. And for some of our F1 audience, and for myself, I think ovals are just this sort of mythical, the speed, the danger of an oval, compared with, say, a more traditional racetrack. Just tell us what it's like to race an oval.
You have to really trust yourself and trust your instincts, because trying to step over that usually ends badly. So I think that's why especially at Indy, I ended up crashing in my last Indy 500. But until that point, I did never crash at Indy, and I really didn't crash by myself very much. In fact, I think I had the longest streak when I retired or finished, of finishes in IndyCar. It was 50 or something in a row without being out of the race. And so that's many seasons, because there's only, there's less than 20 races in an IndyCar season. I think one year it was maybe 14. But ovals take a lot of respect. So, I think that Americans, this is our assessment as Americans, and in an American series like the IndyCar series, that Europeans were a little less respectful about the oval situation. And maybe just because they were less familiar, they thought they could kind of do certain things to the car out there, but the gravity of the crash is so much worse. So it really took a lot of respect out there to, not swerve, cut off, and then also just, leave a little room for error, because there's nowhere to go. If there's a mistake, someone in front of you, and you are right there, there's nowhere to go. So they just take a lot of respect, but they're fun. They're like threading the needle, man. It's, and then you got to be brave to sort of search out where the grip is. That was definitely more of a NASCAR thing, because the line would be sometimes at the very bottom and at the very top. But in IndyCar, it tend to be much lower on the ovals. But we'd sometimes get 3 wide racing.
Yeah. Wow. Another question from Instagram. Matthew, great name, would like to know, what do you think the American race feeder series need to do to steer more rookies towards F1? Do you think
in America?
Yeah. Do you think there's a path from American motorsport into Formula One?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's actually a lot of IndyCar drivers that would love to race Formula One right now.
Paso Awards,
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a bunch of guys that would like that opportunity. Yeah. So I think the fact that it's a much more of a road course racing series now. When I first started in IndyCar, there was only 3 road courses on the entire schedule, and now it's majority. So I think that is what makes the transition much more straightforward.
Yeah.
And then seats, right? You need a seat, and there aren't a lot of seats in Formula One. Not a lot of seats. There's a bunch of guys that aren't going anywhere. So, I mean, it's about catching that wave, right? The wave of the drivers transitioning out of the sport and opening up seats for new drivers. And so sometimes that happens in bigger waves than others. But, you know, if you're not in one of those waves and you're ready, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Go race IndyCar.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen a lot of drivers go the other way, haven't we? From Formula One to IndyCar. Yeah. So it's maybe just time for a few to go the other way. Now I want to get into your thoughts on how we can get more women involved in motorsport. How and when we're going to get a woman lining up on the grid in Formula One. It's been 30 years since there was a woman racing in F1. Are you encouraged by the steps being taken at the moment to get a woman on the grid, or do you think more needs to be done?
Well, you're assuming I want that. You're assuming that is important to me, and it's not.
Okay.
You know, it's always like an interesting stance I have on it. I think that what makes a sport really popular is great racing. Like, you can have half the field out there women and have it be follow the leader, and it's not going to be interesting to watch. Good racing, and that's what we have so much of these days in Formula One. I mean, pretty much everything other than Max is a toss-up for who's going to be really good, who's going to be second, third, fourth, fifth that weekend. And so that's what makes it really appealing. And so I think as someone who obviously was a girl, like, you just got to come up like normal. And I do have a little bit of not a criticism, but an opinion about female series. Is that it's fine. It can give opportunity for some who might not get a chance otherwise to show what they can do. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to race against guys. And so it's like, you know, I don't know, do you watch golf?
Yeah.
So when you watch golf, you watch that, like, a lot of times a golfer that's maybe not ranked as high will rise to the occasion with the one he's golfing with, whoever he's golfing with.
Yeah.
And I think that tends to happen, like, in all sports. That's why you see some of the best wanting to run around, like, practice and be with the best, is because then they get better. Like, if you bench yourself off of something that's not the best, then it's going to affect your effort level, your mental goal, like what you envision yourself doing. And so you really have to put yourself in the toughest situations, and you might as well do it early, because it's only going to get harder.
Yeah.
And so I just think that I think that giving proper tests to be able to see if a driver, if a female is fast enough, is a great way to know if there should be a next step forward. But as far as anything beyond that, I think they should be racing with the guys. I think they should racing in the same series, and they just got to get people around them that believe in them.
Yeah, because looking at your career, you didn't have a W Series, did you? You didn't have an F1 Academy. You fought your way to the
or a minority anything. Like,
yeah.
I giggled along the way. I'm like, I never got any minority money or anything like that, you know.
And you did pretty well, you know, and you got to the very top. So yeah, it just perhaps goes to show. You know, if you were Stefano Domenicali right now, is there anything you'd be doing to change opportunities for women in motorsport? Is there anything you think that he or Formula One could be doing better to at least perhaps give some opportunities?
I mean, I think that the more times that you put yourself in a position to show what you can do, the better off you are. And it's better to be in the car than not.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that just more cars, more track time, and more opportunities to show what you can do is just always a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Doug on Instagram would like to know, is there a woman on the radar through the junior categories that you believe has the speed to be competitive in Formula One?
I don't know. You know, we were talking about Jamie Chadwick last night, and She's doing some racing over in the States. I think she's linked up with Andretti. That obviously she seems like she's a pretty good candidate to have an opportunity. But otherwise, I don't really know. I don't follow it super closely. There's Haley Deegan, who does NASCAR off-road kind of stuff that is pretty young. I mean, she's been driving for a really long time, but she's, I think about how long she's been around, and then I'm like, wow, she's only, I'm not sure exactly, maybe 21 or something like that,
yeah.
20, 21. So I'm like, wow, she's pretty young. So, there's probably, I'm sure there's others that I'm totally not mentioning that I don't see. I don't really watch a lot of racing when I'm not doing it, when I'm not out there, I watch more because I'm part of the broadcast and I need to be informed and know what's going on. But you're not going to find me like on my vacation weekends, just catching up on all levels of motorsports. So I'm not, it's not an interest of mine outside the car.
Yeah.
But I do love sharing my experiences and relating it to the fans watching, and working with really fun people at Sky.
Yeah. You are absolutely a role model for young drivers, for young women drivers everywhere, aren't you? Because of your path and what you've done. Absolutely 100%. I want to talk about Formula One today. Question on Instagram. What driver would be the best if all drivers had the same car? So if we put all of the 20 Formula One drivers in RB19s, say, for this season, who would you pick as the one? Maybe apart from Max, because we're probably going to say that Max would be bossing that in the RB19. But
yeah. It's pretty tough for me to not think about Fernando Alonso.
Yeah.
I mean, just his ability to he's 41. He's like reemerged as so competitive, and just doing that over and over again. It's like his second coming, I think, is just so impressive.
Yeah.
So I think that he's someone I consider to be, you can't exclude Max. I think when we're talking about all when you apply all the styles, that would be a pretty great duo right there between Max and Alonso, because they're both pretty aggressive too. So that would be fun to watch. I'd be really curious to see where Lewis fell in that too, because I feel like he doesn't, obviously he's had so much success with all of his championships. But yeah, I think that he might be really, really close right there. And especially when you take into a race consideration the length of it, he's just so consistent. He just doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And so he'd be snatching the lead when those two are going at it. And
yeah. Do you know, are you surprised that we haven't seen a situation where we do get the best drivers in the world all in the same machinery? Because
they tried to do that.
Did they? Yeah.
They tried to do that back in the day with the IROC series and back in the States. And the bottom line is, and anybody in motorsports will really know, there's no two cars, no two engines that are the same. Mm-hmm. It's just going to be small differences, especially in the engines, like the torque curves. And this is why you have I'm going to my old go-karting days, but you'd get the dyno to give it you'd see the power torque, and these are essentially the same engine, but they all produce a different result just based on, the harmonics, how perfect the bore size. There's just so many different things that contribute to just making these little bit of differences. And so you're just never going to get two identical cars. It's just like impossible.
Paul would like to know on Instagram, what's your favorite IndyCar and F1 track? It's quite a broad spectrum.
My favorite.
What's your favorite one?
My favorite, let's just go with favorite track. I always loved racing at Richmond and Martinsville. Those were two really fun short tracks.
What's the key ingredients for you? What do you love seeing in a
racing?
Race
track? A lot of passing.
Yeah.
Like cars that go off, like where the car is not the same the whole run. It fades and you have to manage it. And if you manage it better, have a better long run car, you can get by so many. I love that. I also love traditional passing tracks when it comes to ovals, the ones that aren't 4 wide side by side. I liked more those traditional passing where it's hard to run 2 wide. It's a bit more of a setup of the pass then, instead of just momentum and running a different line. I really loved the rhythm of Mid-Ohio, if you could get that right. In an IndyCar, that was fun. I really liked Brands Hatch.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I raced the full circuit, the full GP circuit.
This is when you were in England.
Yeah. I thought Brands Hatch was a pretty cool track, actually.
Yeah.
I hated Thruxton, even though I know nobody races there. It's like junior level, I'm sure. But I enjoyed Brands Hatch.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
I'll take that. Yeah.
And I love Indianapolis. I love Indianapolis Motor Speedway. There's just so many levels of love for that.
Yeah.
The fans, the size, the atmosphere, the energy, the speed, the success I had.
A final question from Instagram. If you could make a guest appearance at any European circuit, which would you choose?
As a
driver.
Yeah. Drive it.
To drive it. Yeah. This is you're coming back. You know, it's the there's big swan song, the media attention around it. You're driving one final race in Europe. Which is that circuit that you choose? Maybe it's Brands Hatch.
Yeah, but it has to be on the schedule, right?
Yeah, go on. Let's say it has to be on the F1 schedule.
I mean, I raced at Spa in a Formula Ford.
Yeah.
So going there in a Formula One car and going up the hill and dude, I found it hard to be flat in a Formula Ford. Like, can't imagine what it's like in an F1 car, but or what the feeling is. It might be easy to be flat out going up the hill just from the downforce, but just that track is somewhere that I had experienced at such a low level of motorsport that it'd be
let's go back
pretty
in a Formula
crazy
One car.
To experience it. And was it like Blanchiment or something like really, really fast kink? Maybe there. That would be a more fun track than Silverstone. Let's say.
Okay. Tickets are selling fast, so we'll try and make it happen. So just finally, we know that you've got a lot of other interests now. You've obviously retired from motorsport, but I've got down here entrepreneur, author, podcaster, winemaker. You're pretty busy, right, with stuff post racing.
And like many things were going on before, like the wine. I bought the property in Napa Valley in 2009, so I didn't retire until 2018. So some of these projects have been going on since before, but the podcast keeps me really busy. I do it as really a selfish indulgence into people that I'm fascinated with and topics that I want to learn about. I promise that if I talk to anyone longer than 45 minutes or a half an hour, that I would mention aliens, because I said, if anyone talks to me long enough, I will surely mention aliens.
And you'll know if they're listening, right? Yeah.
So we talk about all that kind of stuff in the show, and psychology and all kinds of things. But the wine, the name is Somnium, which means dream in Latin, because I really just had a dream one day to have a winery when I was standing drinking a glass of wine acceptably, of course, at 10 a.m. And I was like, I want to have something like this someday. And made that happen. And so, and then I vacation a whole bunch too.
Yeah.
So, like, for instance, right now I'm coming off of literally being on vacation for the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Since the Montreal F1 race and being here in Budapest, I've literally been on vacation the whole time through Greece and Italy and Monaco and Mallorca, and it's been a really, really fun. So I enjoy doing that because it's stuff that I never had a chance to do when I was driving.
Yeah.
If I had a 1 week a year, it was great, and so having the opportunity to do those sort of things now is really a really cool thing.
Yeah, you have to come back every summer.
Okay.
Yeah,
I love it. I want to be
summer.
a European in the summer. I want Europe in the summer every year. I'm so ready for that.
Maybe not in the winter.
No.
I'll
go back to Arizona where I live.
I bet. Danica, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. That's fun.
Thank you.